We need to talk about Pedro Neto. He keeps being linked with a move to Tottenham Hotspur. And with Fabrizio Romano reporting that Tottenham are only set to sign one more forward player, it's got me thinking, is this a smart transfer? So today on the Sonny Talk Spurs YouTube channel, we're going to be discussing whether Pedro Neto is the right signing for Tottenham Hotspur. And if you are new to the Sonny Talk Spurs YouTube channel, why don't you drop a like and subscribe, and also become a member in the link in the description down below. So just as I finished recording this video mainly about Pedro Neto, Fabrizio Romano has come at the back post and delivered an exclusive that I'm going to talk about before I get into the main crux of the video. And it's about Dominic Solanke, someone who I've actually mentioned about us signing a little while back on a video. But as Fabrizio Romano tweeted, he said, exclusive, Tottenham explore move for Dominic Solanke. He's among targets for Spurs. It's a difficult deal as he's a key player for AFC Bournemouth. No formal bid to Bournemouth so far. Spurs exploring options to bring in a new striker and potentially a new winger based on opportunities. So that's what I mean. Quite an interesting thing, really, when it comes to this transfer. I think that Dominic Solanke has a £65 million release clause, which I think is a lot of money. I think that's a lot of money. I'd only want to be paying about 50 million for someone like Solanke. I mentioned another striker later in the video who I'm more keen for us to sign. You have to stay tuned to see who I mention. You probably might not get any prizes for guessing. But Solanke, I have touted him. I did say I'd prefer him at one stage over Ivan Toney, but I've mentioned the name there, so that's great. But you know, it's a divvy up between the two. I think would be better as a striker. I'll argue later in the video why I think it would be an Ivan Toney. But Solanke I do like. I like the idea of the transfer. He's got good hold-up play. He's got pace. He's a good age hitting towards his peak. I think he would be even better in our team with, you know, better and more creative players around him. I think he would be the perfect Ange signing when it comes to a striker. So I am quite open to this transfer. I saw a few fans on Twitter not sure about it, but I'm quite optimistic that it could work in our favour. But, you know, only time will tell. But let's get into the main part of the video, talking about Pedro Neto. So a lot of you will be aware of my wants for Tottenham to sign Ivan Toney from Brentford. I believe that Tottenham need a striker for this season, really. You know, we need a clinical striker who's going to put away the chances that we've been creating in the Premier League and other competitions. Wingers are also on the agenda. We've been linked to the likes of Rafinha from Barcelona and Eberechi Eze as well. But Pedro Neto is a name that keeps being linked with us. You know, there was reports this week, Gary O'Neill was talking about the Tottenham target, Pedro Neto, and he said if a huge offer comes from a big club, no one will stand in Pedro's way. And also it said that Tottenham are intensifying efforts to sign Pedro Neto after talks stalled with Crystal Palace for Eberechi Eze. Spurs held further talks on personal terms with Neto after previously engaging with the player. Now you might think, you know, on paper, I like the idea of this signing, but there's a little bit of a feeling in the back of my head and an ache in my stomach that I'm not fully convinced on this deal, depending on how much we are willing to pay. You know, we've already made a few signings. We're apparently not set to make any more midfield signings. We've signed Archie Gray already, with Lucas Bergwall coming in earlier in January and becoming, you know, a permanent signing this summer. And also we've signed that young Korean winger who is set to, you know, storm the world, set the world alight, whatever you may want to call it. But he's set to join in January, more one for the future. So Tottenham haven't really, as I say, done too much in the transfer window. But, you know, we've been developing this squad over the last couple of years. Maybe we need a bit of first team of flurry. And Pedro Neto, he is a Premier League proven player. We must remember that. He's been quite good for Wolves since signing. You know, his numbers speak for themselves. You know, in 111 Premier League appearances for Wolverhampton Wanderers, he scored 11 goals and made 20 assists in about 6,440 minutes. His FB Rev stats are something to behold as well. You know, he is quite a creative winger. Very direct, you know, quite a stereotypical Ange Postecoglou winger, likes to have a go at players, has got an eye for a goal, and is, pretty nifty on that left-hand side. Probably can play on the right as well. Through the middle as well. Apparently, according to Transfermarkt, he is a very versatile player. And still young, only 24 years of age, so fits the sort of age profile that Ange Postecoglou is looking at. But the reason I have these thoughts in my head and a bit of nerve in my stomach is his injury record. We know, from Tottenham last season, we didn't have a good time with injuries. A lot of our first team players and squad members were injured at stages in the Premier League campaign. And even if you look at Pedro Neto's injuries, he's had various knocks, calf injuries, muscle injuries, knee injuries, ankle injuries. But his main one has been his hamstring on 2 different occasions. Back in 2023, he was out for 58 days, missed 11 games. And also March earlier this year, 67 days, 12 games missed as well with that hamstring injury. And you think for the money we might have to pay Wolves to get the player out of the club, a Premier League proven player, we're going to have to really give them an offer that they can't turn down. He's one of their top players, one of their top earners as well. So it's going to be one of those transfers where Tottenham are going to have to go for it if they really want it. As I say, we've been linked to the likes of Rafinha at Barcelona. Neto is always in the conversations when Rafinha is mentioned and vice versa. So it makes you think that, the money has to be put on the table by Daniel Levy, by Scott Munn, by Johan, Lange, Fabio, Paratici, whoever deals with the transfers nowadays at the club, to really make this work. And does he bolster our attack? I look at our forward line at the moment. You've got Dejan Kulusevski playing in a floating role at the moment. You've got Brennan Johnson, Timo Werner, Son, Richarlison. What's his future saying? Is he going to leave the club? And people were not so sure. You've got James Maddison as well. We can play on either wing if needed. So, adding Pedro Neto, does he start straight away? I'm not sure. You'd have to let me know in the comments down below if you think Pedro Neto is a starter for Spurs. But at the moment, I'm just unsure on this signing. I think it's the injury record that really puts me off. Because, lots of reports are saying, even Football.London, that's saying that Tottenham received Pedro Neto transfer green light, as Ange Postecoglou's priority made clear. And goes on to say that Gary O'Neill won't stand in the player's way. Wolves have got Hwang Hee-chan. Is he a better option than Pedro Neto? I just feel like Pedro Neto, due to his injury, I feel like I haven't seen him of recent, and I just wonder whether he is the right player for us, or whether we should be going for a striker. Ivan Toney, I keep saying, is a player of note that I wouldn't mind us signing this summer. I think Ivan Toney is still my front runner, but I've seen reports saying that Brentford might keep hold of him for another year, but then he gets a year older. And, Ivan Toney, he is a bit older. He's 28, but he's in the peak of his powers. I think in a more creative team, he'll be able to score more goals. Pedro Neto, I don't think we need another winger. I feel like we're pretty covered in the wing aspects. We signed Timo Werner on loan for a reason, to cover that wing spot. Son, I prefer as a winger personally. Kulusevski plays on the wing. Brennan Johnson, Hyuk, the new winger coming in January. So I believe that striker is my priority. And Pedro Neto just doesn't tick all my boxes. If it wasn't for that injury record, I would be quite for it. But he is he's stagnating in his career at the moment. Because of that issue. As I say, our injury record last season was not ideal. Adding another player of that calibre to the squad, it's worrying. I just feel like I said I was a bit when it came to Brennan Johnson, I questioned the transfer because I thought it was quite a big fee to pay. I've not seen many fees banded around for Pedro Neto. I think if you're paying like 25, 30 million, it's worth the risk. But I could imagine us paying 40, 50 odd. And I just don't think it's worth that, where we could probably pick up a player from another league for a lot cheaper and not really risk, I know he's Premier League proven, but with that comes a bit of a Premier League tax. So that's where my issues come in. But you guys are going to have to let me know in the comments down below. Do you think that Pedro Neto is a wise signing for Tottenham Hotspur? Because, as I say, I'm not so sure about this one. And, the transfer news regarding Spurs it's a bit dry at the moment. There's not a lot going on, but Pedro Neto is a name that keeps being linked with us. So you'll have to let me know if you think we should sign him. Is there anyone else you think we should sign instead? Do you think we should sign Ivan Toney or a player similar to a striker? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you have enjoyed this, why don't you go and check out some of my other videos on the channel? I had a Dele Alli one go out the other day. Go and check that out. Like the video, subscribe, and also become a member in the link in the description down below. And until next time, I'll see you guys pretty soon. Ciao.